Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by lineups.com. Nate and Josh coming to you guys here the night before this big Monday slate here on MLK Day. So happy off day to hopefully most of you guys here on Monday, checking out these games starting nice and early here on the West Coast and going throughout the day. We're going to be taking a look at some best bets with sides and totals. Also got some player props in this episode. So make sure you are subscribed to that channel. Continue to follow along. Go ahead and give that video a like as well. So we'll go ahead and jump into your first bet here, Nate, talking about these clips. They are going to be without Kawhi. So you are turning to James Harden in a pretty easy matchup here.
Yeah, and more just about the usage. It's just going to be Harden ball going forward for just a couple games, it looks like, without Kawhi. But we saw that on Friday against Toronto, right? I mean, he has 17 potential assists. He winds up with 10 dimes. He had 7 seconds on the ball and 7 dribbles per touch. So it's just classic, like James Harden in Houston vibes, right? And they're surrounding him with Zubac, which is key. I mean, he averages 8.5 dimes versus 7 without Zoo since joining the Clippers. And these like young athletes like Jordan Miller and Kobe Sanders who are just getting more comfortable. I think they get John Collins in there here against a Wizards defense that, of course, is very vulnerable. I'm not sure how exactly to play this. Yeah, like the odds are definitely going to fluctuate. I think a double-double in itself is going to be plus 140. You add the Clippers money line, you're close to 2-1. I think 30 plus PA is probably the safest way to play it in terms of like, you don't know if he's going to be diming up a ton, but he's also going to be scoring. In his last 3, he has a 36% usage rate, even with Kawhi out there, and just shot poorly against the Wiz last time out, still got to the 30 with 22 points and 8 dimes. But I don't think the Wizards really did anything to slow him down. And now you look at it, you get a full weekend off. James Harden generally plays better with a couple of days off, and he's just in a groove right now after 2 vintage performances sandwiched by that okay game against the Wiz.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it should be the dimes that get you there. It's James Harden's the Clippers, but I honestly could see this game being relatively close if the Clippers just try to sleepwalk through it and the Wizards' young bucks come to play. Still don't like them to be able to pull that out. So I would still bank on that stuff for the Clips there. But let's go to a game here, the Cavs and the Thunder. And I just, trust the Thunder obviously a lot more, but they did lose their last game here to Miami. Miami played really, really well, especially on offense. The defense for the Thunder didn't really come along, and they played that one at a really fast pace. In this one, as they come up ready now after a loss here, I'm just ready for them to take back over with Darius Garland out once again for the Cavs. And that's a big part of it. Now, they played a pretty a different schedule with and without Darius Garland. So it's a little bit misleading if you dive deeply into the 17 games that they played without Darius Garland. I believe the best team they played in that they did lose to the Cavs or the Celtics in that time frame. But other than that, you're not looking at a very good sort of roster without him. I'm saying when they went 11-6 without him, 13-13 with him, they're not scoring without him nearly as much though. They're about 7 points fewer per game, and they're also looking at defense that is a little bit better. That's not really where the trouble is for OKC. It hasn't really been scoring when they need to. It's just going to be when they lock up, and they definitely locked up versus Houston. I think Miami did catch them a bit off guard in a couple ways because of the late out from Tyler Hero. They had a bunch of guys questionable throughout that ended up being out, some guys being in, classic Miami stuff, and then they came to play with a Bam having the game of his life. I'm just not sure that down low is going to be where they're going to dominate once again. Like Bam would be a player that I'd trust to be able to handle Chet a lot more so than I think Evan Mobley and even Jared Allen are going to be able to in this one. So I mean, Evan Mobley's stuff is really low because he's been playing really poorly. Their assists go down a ton without Garland as well. Their assist percentage drops about 4% without him. So there's just a lot of stuff that has proven like when Darius Garland's out there, and most importantly, when Darius Garland is out there and himself, which he started to do before he came out now 2 games ago, and now you're left without Sam Merrill as well, and it's really important to have that catch and shoot stuff against OKC. I don't think guys like other than Donnie are going to be able to get into the lane, and then it's just going to be hopefully your shooters hit stuff for the Cavs. I'll take the Thunder in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, maybe some of the Thunder struggles a couple of months ago is just like malaise in the middle of the season, and they need those kind of high-profile matchups to really wake up and spark something. And they need, they needed SGA out for a stretch. Now they have J-Dub out for a little bit here, and they get this matchup against the Cavs where last year it was the supposed finals matchup, right? The Cavs got the first one, and then they absolutely solved them in the second one and just laid the smack down. So maybe that carries over here into the first of the year. Let me go to a night game here because so far we talked about the afternoon ones, but Nets hosting the Suns and thinking under 218.5, thinking Nets team total under specifically. Because I mean, if Devin Booker is out, which I don't know at this point, I think the game total makes sense. But I mean, whether or not he's out, this Nets offense is probably not going to have a ton of success against the Suns defense that is just so disciplined, so ferocious, and they just lean on that defense even more in situations like when they know the offense is going to be great. I mean, when they're favored, the Suns have just been amazing on defense. They've held 8 of their last 9 under 108. I mean, in their last 4, they've held 3 of them under 100. The Nets obviously are not an offensive juggernaut. They rested MPJ on Sunday, so he is going to be back in there after they failed to get to this number against the freaking Bulls. But I mean, MPJ against a top 5 3-point defense, the number 2 assist defense, like Dylan Brooks all in his jersey. It doesn't really scream like he's going off. It doesn't really scream like Gagor Joman's gonna keep having his success in the backcourt there. I mean, the Suns with their rest advantage here, now that they're not on a back-to-back, they're also 5-2 to the under in that situation. The Nets are 0-7 on back-to-backs, scoring just 104 a game and shooting under 30% from 3. So yeah, I mean, clearly that lead towards the Suns just handling business, which they've done even when they're favored. Like initially, I went into this being like, well, we love the Suns as underdogs. Do we love them as favorites? Apparently, we do. They are the number 1 team against the spread. They dominate. They do not. They are on their P's and Q's every night with defense, and the Brooklyn Nets are not a hard team to defend.
No, no, they are not overall, especially when they're going to be sort of one-dimensional and limited in what they can do, and just don't even know who's really going to be getting too many minutes even at this point. I mean, we're going to see plenty of the Wolf, Danny Wolf, and all the rest, but I think you're right to go with that angle there. So I'm going to go with the under here. Also got the Jazz and the Spurs. Going back to our sort of usual go-to, which is like, well, if the Jazz are going to be overvalued in terms of the points and the totals that they play with when they're on the road, then I'm going to be happy to take the under. And if Wemby is playing in this game for the Spurs, then I know the Spurs are going to be a top 5 defense. And that's really mostly what it comes down to at the end of the day for San Antonio, who is still playing not really fast at all when they get with Wemby. They play a couple possessions slower. When they play with Wemby, they are 7 points per 100 better on defense. And their offense is like it's basically the same. It's like slightly worse, actually, which is just whatever in terms of efficiency there. But they definitely score more still when he's out there on the floor overall. I would also throw out there for the Jazz, it's just the splits, right? Like it's when they play on the road here, we're talking about 8 points fewer per game. It was up at about 10. They scored a little bit more on the road recently, but they're still getting like at most the sort of low to mid 240s when they play these games on the road. Other than that, 3 of the last 5 have been under 240 for them when they're playing there. It's just not the same squad. Markkanen's out. Collier is questionable, and really it's just chaos on the Jazz's side of things. When you look at the rotations, when you look at the minutes, you're totally unsure who's going to be in at the end. You know they're probably going to be down by double digits, right? Like they were to the Mavs. After we did see that really 266 total with them in that first game with the Mavs, and came back and still managed to go under. So I think this is going to be a game of them scoring another 110 if we're lucky here. And I just don't know why the Spurs, I guess they could put the hurting on them and go for their own 135 if they wanted to, but I would see this game playing slowly and choppy and the Spurs just sort of keeping it contained the whole time.
Yeah, it looks like, I mean, Spurs blowout, obviously a -17. So, I mean, once they get Castle and Wemby off the floor after they do their light work, yeah, I mean, it's not really a potent offense that you think is going to continue to light the Jazz up for 150. Although, you know, we have seen plenty of teams do that lately, including the skeleton Mavs. So I think that is how you get screwed on the under here. But otherwise, yeah, I don't really trust the Jazz to score much on this elite defense. Look, I think it's time to take the Giannis over. I mean, back-to-back embarrassing losses, then the weekend to reset for the Bucks, and he's probably good as gone, right? I mean, the trade rumors, of course, he's pissed off about it. He's probably not assisting too much to his teammates because they ain't doing much. So let's leave that out of there, and let's just assume he does his thing, putting up numbers against a team that he potentially could get traded to, right? But that's really besides the point. I mean, the 2 days rest so far this season, he's averaged 37.5, 12.5 into on that situation. And it's really, I mean, the Atlanta defense is not scary. Not really a team you expect to also blow out the Bucks the way they did the Wolves and the Spurs did the last two here. I mean, they're just soft defensively. They're kind of food and especially if Dyson Daniels can't go. I don't know who like is really scaring you on the defensive end for the Atlanta Hawks. In the last six, they're allowing 70% at the rim. Basically, any attacking forward in the last 10 games against them has gone over. Like your Peyton Watson, Zions, like they're just going right to the rim, scoring, still no zinger, still no rim protection. And on the season, they're the second worst guarding ISOs in terms of points per possession, but the highest score frequency. So the man with the ball is actually putting it in the basket. He's not isolating and then passing off that. And so Giannis, yeah, he'll just catch it wherever and go right at this defense.
Makes sense to me. I do think that there's actually be a decent amount of scoring in this game. I thought the Hawks were going to keep picking it up, man. They have been atrocious. They have gotten slapped around, and yeah, they don't really have rim protection, which is going to be a problem when Onyeka is your starting center. It's almost just kind of like Onyeka's pretty good at this point to be like a stretch four almost. Like he's shooting some threes, he's diming up. He is not rim protecting, and that is going to continue to be a problem. So it's like as much as Jalen Johnson might be one of the guys more best suited to let's say to limit Giannis, like containing him is the best you can hope to do, and then there's just nobody meeting him at the rim on the second level. But let me go for an under here with Evan Mobley. This is just going to be a kind of go-to for me, even if Darius Garland's out. If we ever see this with Darius Garland at 4.5 when Darius Garland is in, absolutely, I'm going under on that. But this bump from his normal 3.5 comes up because of Garland, but he's still just at about 5 potential assists per game. It's just he's running a lot more dribble handoff stuff. He's running a lot more of that stuff that allows the scorekeepers to kind of, even if the computers don't give him a potential assist, the scorekeepers give him an assist, that kind of stuff, right? And so there's always the danger of that going on. But like he was at 4.5 against Philly, and the under in that game that I took was like -140. I'm going to take this at -114 against the best defense in the league one game later, right? And it would be awesome if J-Dub was out there to be his one-on-one matchup, and I'm not sure if that would push Mobley's stuff. I don't know if the market will push Mobley's stuff up or one way or the other just because J-Dub is out. Not sure it gets that nitty-gritty into it, but that's where I'm at with it, is getting nitty. And still looking at the matchup here as probably Chet, because they'll just start J. Will without J-Dub, right? You can't have Chet and then AJ Mitchell and Kason Wallace. You can't have that many small guards without J-Dub sort of, midi guy who can at least he could absolutely guard Evan Mobley. That is the sort of superpower that is Jalen Williams. Unfortunately, it's not him, but that just puts Chet on him. So now I like it even more. I like it just as much, honestly, if not more. And you see him at 15.5 points because I think the expectation too, one, he's been down a bunch, but in terms of this number here, somehow actually not exceeding 15 points too often over the last 4 or 5, half the time only. And then you put Chet on him in addition to that. Like, yeah, I'm still happy with this number at 4.5. So love this under here. He's done this a couple times without Garland, but we're getting a lot more Craig Porter Jr. and Jalen Tyson. So you're getting a few more guards out there that can also handle the ball.
Yeah, I'm with it. I mean, if you have Chet on him as a primary, and then you have Dort and Caruso in there wreaking havoc, like it's just not easy to have like succinct offense against this Thunder team. And Mobley, yeah, this seems like a surprisingly high number, regardless of who's out for the rest of the Cavs. Your boy Pods out there hustling, Josh. So let's go 4.5 rebounds. Let's just go with the hustle stats, man, because hustle is the way to Steve Kerr's heart. And Pods is a +82 in his last 6. How are you not going to continue to give him like 26 plus minutes if he's playing that well? DeAnthony Melton being out tonight is a big key. Jimmy Butler playing ruled in is actually positive for Pods. He's played better with Jimmy since he came to town. And really it's just about the Heat pace. I mean, they allow the 3rd most rebounds per game in their last 7 in general, 2nd most, particularly the shooting guards, just that pace and space approach, and the 5th most points per game, the shooting guards. So Pods, I mean, he can stay hot offensively. The fact that Hero's out probably leads to less of a half court game, more of that like up and down stuff with Jaquez and Powell just, flying back and forth. The Warriors are more than happy at home to get into that kind of high energy game and to use their deep bench, including Pods, to match athletes. And I think he's gonna stay hot in this one.
Yeah, Pods, man. I would only be taking hustle stuff for him too, like you said, but he does get those minutes. He's one of the only more trustable guys for Steve Kerr's rotation. It's just tough to get like outside of him and then the obvious like other three guys on the squad. He's the one that comes off the bench that you're like, oh, he's still getting minutes, and then like you never know if Moody's going to get them or not. Honestly, even though he's in the starting lineup, he's one of those just sort of like, well, we need a good defender in the starting lineup to make sure we have one guy for the other side. But when you have Jimmy and Draymond out there as well, it's a little bit less needed. I think you get Pods for those, exactly what you're saying, the hustle stats. So let me get Zubac on the boards here, man. Like this is low. The only thing I can understand is one, this is going to get bet up to 11.5. Like 11.5 is his market number. 10.5 is just below it to me, and it's been below it because at times I guess he's been a little bit hurt. They've been slow to like bring him back into full and all that. The fear here would be that this is not a close game against the Wizards and that he just dominates it. But this is the worst rebounding team. It's the worst team in the league, right? Worst rebounding team, worst team against centers, everything, right? So the every time that I can get a good number for a center against the Wizards, especially on the boards, I'll take it. I don't fear the 16.5 points either, but you've got no Kawhi. How likely are we going to see him with 4 boards in the first quarter and be like, duh, of like set 8 boards by the half, duh, like well, we should have been doing this the whole time. And so for this particular matchup, like I'm just going to take this number and not worry about it. He's at 12 a game without Kawhi, by the way, 12 boards a night. So this is just too low, and I would even take this at 11.5.
Yeah, I mean, I love Zoo to be the pick and roll partner for Harden. I was looking at this as well. I mean, you could play it the same way I'm talking about with Harden is a Zubac double and the Clips to win here because those guys are going to be the focal points. I mean, just veterans taking care of business against like you said, the worst team in the league.
Totally. And I would throw John Collins in there as well. Like a guy that's playing without Kawhi Leonard. He's 14.5 points, only 5.5 boards. Expect a lot of that to get bet up. So I would hit that stuff if you get to it. But that is all the time we have for you guys. As we said, happy Monday to you. Enjoy the day off for those of y'all that are not working. Either way, hope you're getting to watch some hoop. And we'll be back on Tuesday with plenty more NBA action. So till we see you next, happy betting.